So this is your grandma's crochet with a twist. So I know a lot of people struggle with how to start and work a granny square. This is a blanket that I made. I love it. It's super pretty. But the granny square or the granny stitch is definitely a kind, I don't want to say a must know, but it's a good should know stitch or project. So this is actually worked continuously in the round. You just keep going and going and going until you either run out of yarn or you reach the size that you want. But I do know a lot of people struggle with how exactly to start the granny square. So that's what we're going to get into today. You are going to need a yarn. I'm using Lion Brand Mandala. I do not have the band for this anymore. This is actually 2 cakes that I wound together. So I'm not sure, I don't remember the name of it, but I know it's Lion Brand Mandala. Your trusty crochet hook, and then I highly recommend, if you are really learning the granny square for the first time, some stitch markers. These are going to come in handy for the first couple of rows or rounds and helping you know where your corners are. So we're just going to jump in and get started. You're going to want to have a slip knot, and then as we've gone over before, I do not use chain starts or anything like that. I use foundation rings and foundation starts. So what I want you to do is you are going to do a 1 foundation double crochet. So that is a chain 2. Insert your hook, pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 1 loop, and then complete that as a regular double crochet. So I have my very first stitch. Now what I'm going to do from here to continue my first center round is I'm going to be working in the bottom of that double crochet foundation stitch. So we are going to start by making the first half of our first corner. So from here, I'm going to place 2 more double crochets into the bottom of that foundation. So that's 1, and that's 2. Now from here, so that's my first half of a corner. Each corner is made up of a set of 2 granny clusters, which is 3 double crochets into the same stitch with a chain in between. So that's my first half of a corner. Now we're going to make the second corner. So I want you to still into the bottom of that same spot. I want you to double crochet 3 more stitches. So we have 1, 2, 3. Now, because everything's super close together, and this is where I say with the twist, I do not chain in between my clusters. I like a closer, tighter cluster. So, but just so we're starting out, I want you to take a stitch marker and place it in between those 2 clusters. So the first corner and the start of your second corner. I want you to put a stitch marker in between those, and this will help you later, I promise. Now to continue our next corner, I want you to chain 1, and again put 3 more double crochets into that same spot we've been working into. 2 and 3. So there we have another our first full corner done. And here you can kind of see that chain 1 space right there. So now again, I want you to start the third corner And again, that's 3 double crochets into the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, and again, between the 3 that you just made and the 3 that you previously made, throw a stitch marker in there. And like I said, this will make sense when we get to the second row. Now to finish your corner, you're going to chain 1 again and 3 more double crochets into that same stitch. 2, 3, and now we are going to make our 4th corner. So it's 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and again in that side between those 2 threes, in the middle of those 6 double crochets right in a row. There we go. Add another marker. And then finish your corner, chain 1, 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And now we've made it back to the first our first corner that we started. So we're gonna finish this first corner. So you, again, 3 more double crochets. So it's 1, 2, and 3. Now I need 1 more stitch marker, so we're just gonna grab a pretty one right here. This guy will work. My green, or my little plastic ones, go missing all the time. So I'm gonna put this stitch marker again in between those groups of the 6 double crochets that are right next to each other, if I can get it in there. So this first row is very tight and close together, but it's what we want. Now, instead of chaining 1 and joining to the very first double crochet we made, what I do and prefer, and it's much cleaner and it makes life easier when working with granny squares, I actually am going to finish this row by placing a half double crochet into that very first double crochet that we made. So that's yarn over, and in that very first double crochet, insert your hook and pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops on your hook. And the reason I end my rows this way is that half double crochet acts as a chain 1 space. So this is our chain 1 space from that half double crochet, but the nice thing is the half double sets us up to start our next row directly into that corner space. So there we have completed our first round. So we have 4 corners. So you got a chain 1 space, or you got a space here for a corner, a space here for a corner, a space here, and then your last corner there. Now the stitch markers are where we're gonna start building upon our grannies with increasing in the corners. So that's how you start, or at least that's how I start mine. There are other ways to do it. I just prefer this way, honestly, because it's easier. But if you need to put a stitch marker in the sides and in the corners, go for it. But now to continue on, I chain 1. I never chain 2 for double crochets. Again, personal preference. And then I'm going to, in that technically in that chain space, or that half double crochet space, I'm going to start my next corner with 3 double crochets into that space. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Now this is why I told you to put a stitch marker between, because now we want to do a granny cluster, which again is 3 double crochets into the same spot in between those double crochets where we added that stitch marker. So I'm going to leave it there just so you guys can see, but there's 3 double crochets that are going to go between those. It's 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm going to remove this stitch marker. So we're starting to get our straight edged side. Now here is the next chain 1 space, and you are going to make a corner into this space. So that's 3 double crochets in the same space, chain 1, and then 3 more double crochets into that exact same space. So 1, 2, and 3. So there is your first full completed corner. And then again, place 3 double crochets into that space where you marked your stitch, or well, the space that you marked with a stitch marker. You're going to throw that in there, and that's the granny cluster, 3 double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to remove that stitch marker, and we're going to work our next full corner, which, one more time, that's 3 double crochets, chain 1, and then 3 more double crochets all into that exact same spot. So there's 3, chain 1, and then 1, 2, 3. So now we have 2 finished corners, and you can see we're starting to get that nice squared look. And into the side again with our granny cluster. That's 1. Stitch marker's in my way. 2 and 3. Remove it because it's in my way. And we're going to do 1 more corner into that chain space. It's 3 doubles, a chain 1, and 3 more doubles. 1, 2, 3. And now we're gonna do our final side. So it's 1 granny cluster, 1, 2, and 3. Remove this stitch marker. And so now we've made it back to our starting corner where we have half of it finished. So now we're going to finish the second half. So into that starting space, double crochet 3, 2, and 3. And then into that very first double crochet, place a half double crochet. And like I said, this sets you up to start your next row and get you going. So we're going to do 1 more row together, and I'm going to send you on your way. So we're going to chain 1, and then again into that space that you made with doing the half double, place 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now at this point, you can better see the gaps between your clusters. So what you want to do, and this will increase for every row from here forward, but into those gaps, you're going to place a granny cluster. So in that first gap, I've got 3 double crochets going into it, 2 and 3. And again, I do not chain between my clusters. Some people do. It's just a personal preference. I do not. If you would like to, go for it. So there's my first space with the cluster. Now we're going to do another cluster into the second space. go. So we finished for one side, well, almost, and now we do a corner into that chain 1 space in the corner. And one more time, that's 3 double crochets, a chain 1, and 3 more double crochets, all into that exact same spot. 1, 2, and 3. So there we have our first finished side of our 3rd round. And you just repeat those same steps all the way around. So I've got 2 spaces here in a corner, 2 spaces in a corner, 2 spaces, and then we'll finish off that corner together. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna continue the pattern around, and I'll meet you at the end and finish off the row with you. Okay, so now we're coming up to the last side. So again, a granny cluster into both of those spaces. 2 and 3, and then 1 more. 1, 2, and 3. And then again, to finish off your round, 3 double crochets into that corner. 1, 2, and 3, and then finish with a half double crochet into that very first double crochet that you made. And there we go. That gives you the start of a granny square, and all you do, here we go, it's nice and pretty, it's nice and square. So all you do to turn this into this is you just keep going. You just keep following that pattern all the way around. It will grow on its own, because each row as you go around, you can see we had 2 clusters for this side for the round we just did, and the next round will have 3 clusters in the side as we go around. So it's honestly pretty mindless, and they work up pretty quickly once you're used to it. Starting them is probably the hardest part, but once you get this down, you're on your way. And the granny cluster is great, not just for blankets. I've used it for shawls. I currently am in the middle of designing a bag that you can use the granny cluster with. It's just a great, useful stitch to have and to know and everything like that. So there you go. I'm probably gonna keep working on this one and just see how big it gets, because this is a lot of yarn. And I will check back in with you and update you on how this is going. And I would love to see what you guys are making. If you decide to make a granny square blanket, please post it. And if you post it, tag me, at C3 Fiber Arts, hashtag C3 Taught Me. I would love to see your guys' creations. It would be phenomenal. But from here, go practice, make a square, make a bunch of squares, because you can sew them together, whatever you want to do. Go. I'm going to go. I'm going to see how big we can make this. Bye.